Marvel. Start to create Hydra. Chapter 11. Kyle stared at each other with his neck twisted, not losing to them in momentum. Gabri can't do it, seeing so many people on the other side, he has long hit at the back, shrinking his neck, and he doesn't dare to make the slightest movement. At this time, Clark looked at the cigarette butt on the ground, shook his head and said, "If you smoke at a young age, aren't you afraid of lung cancer at the age of 20 or 30? Quote. Huh. Dentist was stunned, and then roared with an annoyed look, "Mind you're the boss of Hydra, right? Very arrogant you." Quote. "Why? I want to fight." Kyle rolled his sleeves and was about to move forward. If it weren't for Ian pulling him, this guy who was not afraid of the sky would probably rush up. Calm down. Forgot what the Grand Commander said before he came. Ian pulled this guy, he was thin, and he really couldn't hold Kyle. At this time, Clark waved his hand, telling the 5 little brothers behind him to calm down a little. Okay, don't put on a show, don't talk nonsense, I still have a lot of things to do in the afternoon, and I don't have so much time to fool around with you here. Clark said lightly, as he walked forward. Come on, let's talk with our fists. Today either you will be beaten down by me, or I will knock you down. Black Viper everyone. Don't think that we are elementary school students with a low level of education, so we can't hear that your 2 sentences mean the same thing. You dare to underestimate us, Black Viper. Quote. Dentist was originally a violent temper, where can he endure it now? With a roar, he rushed up, with a high kick, full of momentum. However, it didn't work. Bang! Clark casually grabbed the other's leg and smashed it to the ground. Dante's physical fitness is already very strong among his peers, but for Clark, whose physical fitness is much stronger than that of adults, it is completely root bean sprouts. A casual smash made him lose his combat effectiveness for a short time. At that moment, Clark rushed directly into the Black Viper's crowd, like a wolf into a flock. These 5th and 6th grade Black Viper members, each of them was his enemy. Less than 2 minutes. The 20 or so members of the Black Viper all lay on the ground, screaming. Clark clapped his hands and looked down at them. Do you want Hydra to merge into your Black Viper now? He looked at Dentist and asked. Dentist, who had long been frightened, dared to nod, and quickly shook his head like a rattle. 120. When had he ever seen such a raw person? It's just like the god of war. So, from today onwards, you Black Viper will merge into our Hydra, don't you have an opinion? Clark looked down at him and asked. Where Dentist dares to have an opinion. What's more, for Dentist, who worships the strong, following a strong man like Clark, he does not feel embarrassed at all. On the contrary, he is very happy. Boss. Dentist got up from the ground and shouted immediately. Call us the Grand Commander. Clark corrected. Grand Commander. Dentist changed his tone and shouted, Grand Commander, what kind of martial arts did you just have? I haven't seen it. Quote. That's not martial arts, that's killing techniques. If it weren't for the mercy of my subordinates, you would already be a pile of corpses by now. Clark said with a sneer. But in fact, he doesn't know any fighting skills at all, just purely relying on physical fitness to crush. The so-called killing skills are just some actions from movies and television. But would Clark say that? Apparently not. Killing skills. Dentist was bluffed by Clark. The point was that the facts were in front of him, and he couldn't believe it. At this moment, the admiration for Clark in his heart increased a little. What a Black Viper. He has long since left him behind. From today onwards, he Dentist is a member of Hydra. You all listen to me, from today we will join Hydra, don't hurry up and call the Grand Commander. Dentist yelled at his group of little brothers. Grand Commander. Grand Commander. Clark nodded slightly. Okay, now I'll stand up, let me tell you about the purpose of our Hydra. Still the same way, Clark explained the rules of his own Hydra, telling them what to do, what not to do, and so on. Disintegrate the Black Viper and force the Black Viper to merge into the Hydra, destroying points +20. Oh. Clark's eyes lit up. I didn't expect to get points in this way. Although there are fewer points, this is undoubtedly another way to earn points. Moreover, his Hydra suddenly increased these 20 people, even if each person did one destructive thing every day, even if each event only added 2 points, it was a full 40 points. That meant Clark didn't have to do anything even on a normal day. Just by basking in the sun, these little brothers under him will bring him more than 40 points of income that destroys points every day. Annexed the Black Viper and strengthened the nascent Hydra organization. Clark was in a good mood throughout the day. At midnight, he moved again. This time, in order to avoid being ambushed again, Clark first turned into another face, and when he reached the place, he changed into the black trenchcoat man again. For the next few days, it was every night. Basically, Clark can earn about 70 destruction points just for his midnight actions at the end of the day. Plus the extra income that those little brothers under him brought him. One day's point income is basically stable at about 120. A week later, Clark once again amassed more than 1,000 destruction points. Name: Clark. Week: Kent. Gender: male. Age 9 300s. Wolverine's self-healing ability increased plus Kryptonian template boost. Already owned template. Kryptonian template 0.02% plus. Already possessed abilities. Stellar Energy passive, from Kryptonian template, Super Self-Healing passive, Wolverine version, Magic Transformation, active, which version? Destruction points, 1042 points. The mind turns into a finger, a little on that plus sign. Suddenly, the destruction points on Clark's account were reduced by 1000 points. As a result, the Kryptonian template increased by 0.01% again, reaching the level of 0.03%. Bathed in the sun, Clark felt as if every cell in his body was breathing in the energy of the sun. He closed his eyes, put his hands behind his head, and enjoyed the comfortable sunbathing. Comfortable. Meanwhile, Falcone Estate. The oppressive atmosphere made several people kneeling on the ground can't help but sweat on their foreheads. His Excellency Falcone, who was sitting behind his desk, wiping a pistol, ignored this and slowly wiped the collector's edition pistol. After half a ring. Finally, someone couldn't help but raise his head and spoke. Your Excellency Falcone, please give me again. Bang. The man didn't finish speaking. Just listened to a gunshot. The bullet pierced directly through his eyebrow. Poof. The body fell diagonally to the ground. The other 3 people on the side trembled even more. At the same time, I secretly rejoiced that it was not myself who just spoke. Lowering the gun, His Excellency Falcone stood up and walked over to the trio. I gave Kalo a week, and then he died the next day, at the hands of that killer. His Excellency Falcone said in a calm tone, I have also given you a week. Quote. Now a week has passed. Tell me, what did you find? Quote. The 3 kneeling men did not dare to squeak. I was afraid that as soon as I opened my mouth, I would be shot in the head. All because this week they not only didn't find anything, but once again let the killer destroy several industries under Falco's cabinet. You, answer my question. His Excellency Falcone tapped the man on the left on the shoulder with his cane. The person who was ordered trembled and replied, Yes, I'm sorry. I have sent all my men to track down the whereabouts of the other party, but the other party is like a ghost, and I can't find the slightest bit of information. Quote. Ghost. His Excellency Falcone smiled. Then in the next second, the expensive cane in his hand directly stabbed into the man's eye socket. Poof. The body fell to the ground. His Excellency Falcone turned back to his desk and sat down. Wiping his cane with a handkerchief, he said, I'll give you another week, and if you can't find any useful information, you won't see me. Quote. The 2 who survived quickly nodded, not daring to have the slightest doubt. Get out. Falco's cabinet waved his hand. The 2 kneeling on the ground quickly got up as if they had been pardoned, and they didn't care about their kneeling legs, supported each other, and stumbled out of the study. After the 2 went out, someone soon came in, cleaned up the 2 corpses in the study, and cleaned up the soiled environment. His Excellency Falcone stood at the window, looking out the window, but his brows were locked and it was difficult to stretch out. Who the hell is against me? El Sugiso International Airport. 2 figures, one black and one white, came out of the airport exit and got into a long-awaited black car. In the car, the driver of the car looked through the rearview mirror of the car at the 2 people sitting in the back row. Agent Fury, welcome to El Sugi. And, of course, Agent Coulson. The 2 people sitting in the back row are the future famous S.H.I.E.L.D. directors, Nick Fury, and Phil, known as the newcomer to the newcomer in the novice village. Coulson. It's just that Fury is not yet the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Coulson is just a newcomer who has only joined S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent Fury, are we going directly to the hotel where we are staying, or are we going to the branch? The agent driving asked. Fury, who is still in sound eyes, looked at the driver in the front driver's seat and said lightly, go to the scene first, and then go to see the corpses. Quote. Yes, Agent Fury. The agent who was driving nodded, without any disagreement. The Blood Rose bar, now a ruin, approached and could smell the burning smell wafting in the air. A black sedan stopped on the side of the road. Fury took Coulson out of the car and walked into the ruins. The scene has been cleared by the local police, and some places are marked with white chalk. The two looked around the scene. Fury focused on some bullet marks on the ground or walls. As ballistic analysis tapered, Fury looked back at the driver. It's all here, Agent Fury. The driver handed over a thick document. This includes ballistic analysis at several other sites, except for the last site, which has not yet been completed due to time. Fury opened the document and looked at it. He looked carefully and did not miss a single detail. After half a ring, syllable, Fury closed the paperwork, turned back to Coulson, who was inspecting the scene, and said, go to the next place. Quote. Coulson patted the dust on his hands, took off his gloves and followed. Throughout the morning, the two went to the entire scene and did not find any clear clues. Agent Fury, it's not early, or shall we go to lunch first, and then go to see the corpse? In the car, the agent who was driving looked at the rearview mirror in the car and said. Fury nodded when he heard this. Let's choose one nearby. The agent who was driving nodded, and the car turned around and headed for the other side of the road. On the side of the road, the car stopped. This is it, I often come to visit this Chinese restaurant, it tastes very good. The three people in the car got out of the car. Fury looked at the Chinese restaurant in front of him and saw that there were many Chinese faces in the store, and knew that this Chinese restaurant should be considered more authentic. As we all know, Chinese rarely go to eat those unauthentic Chinese restaurants. After all, eating that thing, for them is better to eat a burger. Burgers are cheap and delicious, and those Chinese restaurants specially designed to cater to the taste of foreigners, both not delicious and expensive to die. Fury, who was about to enter the store, suddenly saw something and paused in his steps. What's wrong, sir? Coulson saw the patriarch stop suddenly, and couldn't help but look at him suspiciously. Fury didn't speak, just staring at a pattern on the wall to the left. It was an octopus-like pattern. It's just that the head is a skeleton with 6 octopus legs symmetrical on the left and right underneath. This sign Fury is all too familiar. Hydra. The evil organization that almost upended the whole world in World War II. Is it a prank? Fury thought with a frown. Just then, 2 little boys passed by. Long live Hydra. One of the little boys said to the other. Long live Hydra. As if completing the joint code, the 2 little boys walked into the Chinese restaurant in front of them with a smile and hooked their backs. Coulson looked confused. Fury also turned to look at the local agent of L. Shaniso. It's just kid-to-child play. The local agent smiled and said, not caring about the appearance. But Fury always felt that things were not simple. It was an intuition on his part, and he had saved his life more than once on the battlefield. Is it just a kid-to-child joke? Fury was skeptical. With a strange mood, the 3 walked into this Chinese restaurant. Fury noticed that the 2 little boys who were chanting the slogan of Hydra were sitting at a window by the window, and there were 2 other boys at the same table, and the 4 children were laughing and chatting about something. Out of some suspicion in the center, Fury chose to sit at a table near them. After ordering and waiting for the food, Fury has been eavesdropping on the conversation of the 4 little boys at the next table. In fact, not only him, Coulson is also eavesdropping. But after a pause, Fury found that they were talking about comics, cartoons or something, and there was no valuable content at all, which made Fury think, was he too suspicious? Jingle bells. At this time, the door of the restaurant was pushed open. Clark, with a pocket in one hand, walked in slowly. Grand Commander, over here. Kyle saw him and stood up and beckoned. Clark looked over and suddenly saw the 3 people at the next table, and the pupils in his eyes suddenly shrank. Quote exclamation mark. How is it a brine egg? Quote. Clark was secretly shocked, and thought that the Hydra organization he founded attracted the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D., but thinking about it carefully, it seemed unlikely. After all, it was just a group of children, who would care about a group of children's play. But anyway, Clark knew he couldn't put on too much of a strange expression right now. Even if this black brine egg is not coming for his Hydra, he must be careful and careful. People are the future king of agents. Clark felt that he couldn't be too careful. Good Grand Commander. Clark walked over to the table, and his 4 little brothers immediately stood up and shouted. The surrounding guests couldn't help but look sideways. Okay, let's all sit. Clark sat down and said to the 4 men. From beginning to end, he didn't pay much attention to the 3 people at the next table, just glanced at them when he came over. You don't look at it, but it will arouse the suspicion of the black brine egg. After all, in this entire restaurant, there is only the black egg at their table, and the 3 people are wearing standard black suits, which are very conspicuous. But if you pay too much attention, it will also arouse the suspicion of black brine eggs. So Clark just glanced over when he came over. The performance is not much different from that of ordinary little boys. Grand Commander. Fury glanced at Clark at the next table, and from the names of the 4 little boys, he could tell that this stronger-looking boy should be the leader of their Hydra organization. Did you order something to eat? Clark asked the 4 of them. The 4 shook their heads. Grand Commander, come on. Ian handed the menu to Clark. Can you eat spicy? Clark asked after taking the menu. I can eat spicy. Kyle said loudly. Ian and the 3 of them shook their heads, indicating that they didn't like spicy food. Then I'll be less spicy. Clark said. After ordering, Clark took the initiative to chat with the 4 of them about last night's Superman animation, which he usually wouldn't talk to them, but today is not a special situation. Fury paid attention to the situation at the next table for a while, especially Clark, the commander. As a result, after listening for a while, I found that they were talking about the content of the cartoon again. Suddenly shook his head secretly. Sure enough, I have too much heart. In fact, it is not uncommon for children to play with an evil organization such as Hydra. After all, children. It's normal to be mischievous. Evil organizations like Hydra, not only do they not hate, but they also find it cool. Fury has not encountered it in the past. This kind of small group, in the new about him also encountered, did not care much in the past, but this time I don't know how, I feel a little strange. But now that I look at it for a while, it seems that there is nothing special about it. Just like the previous ones, it was just a play between children. Fury, on his part, did not pay any more attention to Clark's situation at their table. But Clark didn't know what Fury was thinking. At this lunch, Clark was a little happy. When Fury and their table had finished eating and left, he secretly sighed in relief. Why did this black brine egg come to El Shaniso? Clark thought to himself. Clark didn't know that the reason why Fury came was entirely because of his relationship, and if he hadn't made so many big movements during this time, Fury wouldn't have come all the way. After lunch, Fury and his party went to the morgue to check on the bodies. Although it is a bit heavy to come to see a pile of miserable dead corpses just after eating, those who do their business have long been accustomed to these, and they will not be unable to adapt. In the morgue, rows after rows were lined with numerous corpses. Fury and Coulson came over to check it out. It was basically affirmed in my heart that this was a case created by criminals with supernatural abilities. On these corpses, except for a very small number of those who were shot and killed, the vast majority were killed by sharp blades, and they were the same blade, and the technique can basically be confirmed to be from the same person. Judging from the investigation of the scene, these people were not killed in a very short time, they had resisted, and so many bullet marks on the scene were enough to explain everything. In that case, how did the murderer manage to kill so many people in the face of such a rain of bullets in the face of one person? There is only one answer. The other party has special abilities beyond the scope of existing scientific explanations. Their Directorate of Territorial Strategic Defense, Attack and Logistics is a special agency that deals with such cases. Cases like this, handed over to ordinary police officers, obviously do not work. The other party is a special group with supernatural abilities, ordinary police officers, there is no way to deal with this type of person. Only these specially trained agents. To resolve such incidents. Night. The day's events made Clark a little hesitant to continue tonight. But after much consideration, Clark decided to continue tonight. He can't be too scared to go out because of a black egg. That was not in line with his status as the Hydra Grand Commander. What's more, he has the ability to transform into a demon shape, and he is not afraid of revealing his true identity. Maybe I can get some benefit from the black brine eggs. Clark suddenly thought of something. The rule by which the system determines the reward is the magnitude of the impact. This influence includes the impact of the event on society itself, and the influence of the participants in the event in the world. Of course, there are other details, but the main ones are the above 2 points. So follow this rule. Nick Fury, the future S.H.I.E.L.D. director and the founder of the Avengers, has a great influence in this world. So, if it's an incident involving the future S.H.I.E.L.D. director, does that mean Clark can get a larger point reward? Last time I touched the porcelain Hydra, the scope of influence can be said to be very small, but because of the influence of the Hydra itself in this world, the system directly gave 100 points. Then if I'm in Nick, what about Fury declaring himself a Hydra in front of him? Quote. The more he thought about it, the more Clark felt that this method worked. Moreover, once he declares himself to be Hydra in front of Fury, Fury will definitely report the matter to the top of S.H.I.E.L.D. afterwards, so that not only the behemoth of S.H.I.E.L.D. can be involved, but also the Hydra lurking inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Presumably, when the time comes, those guys of Hydra will be very confused. It was obviously well hidden, but it was suddenly exposed by a guy who didn't know who it was. Just thinking about it, Clark thought it was funny. That's it. Clark slapped his thigh and decided. Hotel room. Coulson found Fury, who was flipping through the information. There is news, several local gangs are preparing to set a trap tonight to attract the target people over. Fury closed the information in his hand and stood up. It looks like a good show is going to be put on tonight. Fury smiled, walked over to grab his coat, and walked quickly to the door. Behind him, Coulson quickly followed. Hellbite Club. This is the lair of the Hellbite gang, and they have a big party here tonight. Clark also heard the news, but he always felt that there was an air of conspiracy in it. But he came anyway. It's not that because Yi Gao is bold, he deliberately rammed into the trap, but his main target tonight is not these gangsters, but people from S.H.I.E.L.D. Since he can guess that this is a trap, then there is no reason to be shrewd like Nick Fury will not know this. Clark concluded that Nick Fury will be here tonight. Just like Nick Fury was sure he would be here tonight. Parking in front of the club. Hundreds of motorcycles parked here, and many people from the Hell Motorcycle Gang simply did not enter the club at all, just drank and barbecued meat in the parking lot outside, and the noise could be heard across 2 streets. William, do you say that guy will come tonight? Better not, I heard that guy is a monster and can't be killed at all. The bearded man named William took a sip of wine and whispered to his companion's ear. Haha. Do you still want to believe this kind of joke? How can there be any monsters in this world that cannot be killed? The companion next to him laughed and said, it must be those cowards. In order to cover up their failures, they deliberately said that the other party is an unkillable monster, a group of waste. Quote. It's best to fake, I don't want to encounter that kind of monster that can't be killed. William the Bearded shook his head and said. At this moment, the companion next to him suddenly patted him, pointed to the dark place across the road and said, look over there, is there a person? Quote. What? The bearded William turned his head to look over, but saw a cold light constantly enlarging in his vision. Poof. The flying long knife directly entered William's heart. His eyes widened in disbelief, he opened his mouth to say something, but only a few mouthfuls of blood spewed out, and then the whole person fell down weakly. William. Quote. The companion next to him was so frightened that he even threw out the wine bottle in his hand. At this time, a figure rushed from the other side of the road at a very fast speed. Bang! A figure flew out 3 or 4 meters and crashed into a parked motorcycle. It's the night demon. He's coming. Quote. Someone shouted loudly. The members of the Hell Motorcycle Gang, who were still drinking and chatting a moment ago, took out their guns at this moment and fired several shots at the black figure. Gunshots rang out throughout the parking lot, even masking the loud sound of music. More than a dozen blood flowers immediately burst out of Clark's body. The intense pain stimulated his nerves. But over the course of time, Clark had become accustomed to the pain, and although it still hurt, he could bear it. Pull out your knife and rush into the crowd. In an instant, the stump and broken arm flew horizontally, and a mournful scream resounded in the night sky. In the distance, the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who had been monitoring this side for a long time, couldn't help but look a little ugly when they saw this scene. Sir, is there really someone in this world who can't be killed? Coulson looked at the picture in the distance and couldn't help but turn his head to ask Fury on the side. Newcomer, you have to remember that there has never been a person in this world who cannot be killed, and the reason why you feel that he cannot kill is only because you have not found the right way. Fury glanced at Coulson beside him and said in a cautionary tone. Coulson nodded and secretly wrote down the sentence. In fact, the shock Fury felt in his heart was not much smaller than Coulson. It's just that he is used to not showing his thoughts on his face, so he can't see it. But as he said himself, there is no one in this world who cannot be killed, even if this guy called the Night Demon in the distance can still be fierce under so many bullets. But Fury always firmly believes that the other party is by no means an unkillable existence. Bullets can't kill him, they still have bombs. Even if the bombs still can't kill him, Fury won't believe it. Throw him into the magma, will he die? Moreover, in addition to being difficult to kill, this Night Demon is not much stronger than ordinary people in other aspects, whether it is speed or strength, there is no amazing performance. And that kind of combat skill makes the experienced agent Fury see the flaws. To sum up, Fury can almost be sure that the other party is just an ordinary person who suddenly acquired special abilities. As for why do so many things? Judging from the first appearance of the other party to what he has done now, he should have some personal grudges with these gangsters. After reaching these conclusions in his heart, Fury was relieved. What he was most worried about was that this Night Demon was actually a strengthened person cultivated by some organization, and if that was the case, things would become complicated and tricky. The current result is the best. Even, they S.H.I.E.L.D. may be able to recruit this Night Demon. After all, the other party's talent is there, and after a little training, it will be better than those agents who have been cultivated for more than 10 years. However, these things are not yet the turn of a third-level agent in Fury's district to consider. His task now is only to capture the other party. As for whether the follow-up is Jowan or something else, then it is none of his business. In the club, people kept pouring out. It feels like stabbing a hornet's nest. These people, some of them from the Hell Motorcycle Gang, but many more from other gangs, were instructed by Falco's cabinet to set up this ambush tonight to kill this Night Demon. It's just that the Night Demon is far more difficult than they expected before. Seeing that people are constantly falling in front, and the Night Demon who obviously doesn't know how many shots he has in his body, but he is still killing fiercely, which makes many people a little scared. Up. Give it all to me. Quote. The other party is alone, afraid of a fart. Several gang leaders in the back shouted loudly. At first, it was still a little useful, but gradually, these subordinates did not listen to them anymore, and no matter how they reprimanded, they just did not rush forward. MD, get out of my way, let me come. A bald bearded man grabbed the AK in his subordinate's hand and fired at Clark, who rushed over. The bullet crackled on Clark's body, causing him to retreat. But when the shuttle was swept, a sound of ding zero dang was heard, and the bullets that hit Clark were all squeezed out by the muscles on his body, and the warheads that had been flattened fell to the ground one after another, making a crisp sound. Clark steadied his body at this time, raised his head with a bloody face, stared at the other party, and showed a sinister smile. You monster. Give me death. Quote. The bald bearded man was obviously scared and turned pale, but he still cursed angrily and took out his pistol and shot at Clark repeatedly. Clark dodged left and right, avoiding some of the bullets. When he got closer, he waved his hand and directly cut off an arm that the bald beard raised to resist. The screams of the bald bearded man had just sounded, and Clark stabbed again. The screams suddenly stopped. When the other people who were still alive saw that they had already been frightened, they still cared about what orders and did not order, and they all turned around and ran, one faster than the other. Clark didn't pursue either. He stood there and gasped for a few breaths. At this moment, a neat sound of footsteps came from all directions, accompanied by the sound of bullets being loaded, and small green dots appeared on Clark's body. I know bullets can't kill you, but trust me, these people are not the punks you usually deal with. A voice came from that side. Clark turned to look over. In the darkness, a black man in a black suit came out of the crowd, followed by a white man with a meticulous expression. Nick Fury. Phil Coulson. Seeing the two, Clark couldn't help but read the names of the two in his heart. Mr. Immortal, can I trouble you to put down the weapon in your hand first? Fury pointed to the knife in Clark's hand. Are you still afraid of this? Clark picked up the knife and shook it. Calm down, Mr. Immortal, otherwise I can't guarantee that there will be dozens of bullet holes on your handsome face in the next second. Fury said loudly with an exaggerated expression, while taking a small step back. Yes, this is the distance, and it is good for you and me to keep this distance between us. Quote. Are you so afraid of death? Clark laughed and threw the knife in his hand on the ground. I believe it must be difficult for you to understand the degree of awe of such weapons by ordinary people. Fury laughed and said, so, can I trouble you to kick it a little farther? Yes, kick gently, don't push hard. Quote. Clark casually kicked over and kicked the knife that had been thrown on the ground to the side. Immediately, someone stepped forward, put the knife away, and put it in a container. That's just an ordinary knife. Clark saw this and said, and, this black, you are also wrong about one thing, Mr. African American, I can understand the awe of you ordinary people for weapons, and I am not born with this ability. Quote. Wow. That's good news. Fury said with a smile, but in fact, in the bottom of his heart, he was already thinking about another problem. This ability is not innate. That is, most likely a product of the laboratory. So, who made him? Fury felt that things had suddenly become a lot trickier. He would rather the other person tell him that this ability is innate, and you don't want to copy it. That would be better. Well, it looks like this isn't quite suitable for our conversation, how about we change places? Like the interrogation room. Clark smiled and said. It can also be a single suite. Fury said, trust me, they always satisfy you. Quote. What if I don't want to? Clark looked at him and said. Fury looked left and right and pointed to the heavily armed special operators. It seems that I don't have a choice. Clark scoffed and said. That depends on what you think. You can take it as your own initiative to cooperate with us. Fury was still that smiling look, and to be honest, his expression was quite bad. Unfortunately, I plan to choose another path. Clark whispered. What? Fury didn't hear clearly. At this time, Clark suddenly put a hand in his pocket and pressed a button. The next moment, a violent explosion sounded. The surrounding circle, including the club in front, was engulfed in flames from the explosion in an instant. The people of S.H.I.E.L.D. were directly thrown out by the shock wave generated by the explosion, and for a while everyone was dizzy from the fall, and it was difficult to even stand up. Clark was the only one present who could stand up. He patted the dust on his clothes and walked step by step to Nick, who fell to the ground. In front of Fury. Agent Fury, we'll see you next time. He crouched down and bent over Nick. Fury whispered in his ear, Hydra, long live. Quote. On the ground, Fury struggled and reached out and grabbed Clark's ankle. You are, Hydra. Quote. Didn't Agent Fury hear that? Clark's face was full of kind smiles. Cut off one head, grow two. See you next time, Agent Fury. Quote. After that, Clark turned and left, and his figure gradually disappeared into the flames of the explosion. Destroy Falcone's ambush plan, seriously break the underground rules it makes, and destroy the points plus 200. Closing square bracket. Slightly destroy the Hydra organization lurking plan, destroy points plus 1000. Closing square bracket. Severely damage the S.H.I.E.L.D. Special Combat Team, kill 3 S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and destroy plus 200 points. Closing square bracket. In the presence of Nick Fury's face, personally said, long live Hydra, and then flew away, causing a long and indelible trauma to his spirit, and the destruction points were plus 5000. Minor injuries Phil Coulson, and make an indelible bad impression in his mind, destroying points plus 800. Clark, who had just returned home, suddenly received several prompts from the system in his mind. Good fellow. The future director of S.H.I.E.L.D. is indeed the head of Shui points. Quote. Clark, who just lay down, sat up directly, did not rest, directly summoned the character panel, and prepared to strengthen it. Destruction points, 7,253. Already owned template, Kryptonian template 0.03% plus. 1, 2, 3. After 7 clicks, the plus sign after the Kryptonian template disappeared. Let's look at the enhanced Kryptonian template data. Already owned template, Kryptonian template 0.1%. After the decimal point, there is finally only one digit. Clark laughed happily. Name, Clark. Week, Kent. Gender, male. Age 9 400s. Wolverine's self-healing ability is improved plus Kryptonian template boost. Already owned template, Kryptonian template 0.1%. Existing abilities, Biological Force Field, active, from Kryptonian template, Stellar Energy, passive, from Kryptonian template, Overdrive Self-Healing, passive, Wolverine version, Magic Transformation, active, which version? Destruction points, 253 points. The Kryptonian template has been upgraded to 0.1%, adding the ability of a biological force field. This ability may not be well understood by many people. In fact, the reason why Superman can fly, and when lifting heavy objects, can lift the huge weight completely instead of directly passing through it, relies on this biological force field. Clark tested it. His current biological force field is still very weak, let alone make himself fly, and it is difficult to even wrap a table. But as long as Clark absorbs more and more stellar energy, his biological force field will continue to become stronger, and sooner or later it will reach a level that can make him fly. In the hospital. When Fury woke up, the scene before he fell unconscious was still playing in his mind. Including the man's whisper in his ear, the tone of every word and sentence, he remembered it clearly. Hydra. Could it really be that bunch of guys resurrected? Quote. Fury sat up and pondered the question. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Like that kind of cutting-edge technology, which can transform the human body into that inhuman degree, only Hydra, which developed energy weapons during World War II, can do it. Is this world going to be chaotic again? The return of Hydra made Fury realize something. Just as he was thinking about what kind of purpose Hydra was doing this time, the door of his ward was suddenly pushed open, followed by a middle-aged white man wearing a suit and glasses walking in. Fury, nice to see you're okay. Kohler, who pushed the door in, saw that Fury had woken up, and his face was also smiling. He pulled over a chair and sat down, the smile on his face narrowing. Tell me, what's going on? Kohler said with a calm face, we sacrificed 3 excellent agents this time, and this matter cannot be left alone. Quote. How's that newcomer? Fury heard this and subconsciously asked. Coulson. He was fine, just a little skin trauma. Quote. Fury breathed a sigh of relief, followed by a serious expression, and said, Sir, do you believe that Hydra still exists? Quote. Agent Fury, do you know what you're talking about? Kohler's expression was unprecedentedly solemn and said, the Hydra has been eliminated, and under the leadership of Captain America, their leader Red Skull has long ceased to exist, you should know this. Quote. Yes, I thought I knew very well. Fury said, but last night the guy, he personally shouted the slogan Hydra in my ear. Moreover, is it really possible to do something like that high-end transformation technology that some little-known organization can do? Quote. Kohler fell silent. After half a ring, he said, I will report this matter to the top, but you remember. I don't allow you to talk to anyone about this until the top draws conclusions, understand? Quote. Fury nodded, he also knew the seriousness of the matter. If Hydra really still exists in some corner of the world, it is not just their shield business. God knows what these guys who like to engage in intrigue are planning behind their backs. Okay, you have a good rest, I have granted you a 3-day vacation, you don't have to think about anything for these 3 days, just cultivate your body with peace of mind. Kohler patted Fury's shoulder, stood up and said, I'll go first, you kid gave me a problem this time. Quote. This is what I should do. Fury said with a smile, and his mood relaxed a lot. Turn around and walk out of the ward. Kohler looked back again, and a strange look flashed deep under the lenses. In the yard, Clark was basking in the sun. The Kryptonian template that has been upgraded to 0.1% is different from before, and Clark can almost clearly feel that he is getting stronger little by little. This feeling is like you can clearly see how much experience points will increase with each monster you hack in the game. This kind of weather is the best time to lie lazily and motionless. Reach out and pick up the chilled Coke on the side. Take a sip of Coke and burp. Life is so expensive. Clark, aren't you hot? Abigail, wearing a small phallic hat, came over with 2 water guns. Do you want to play together? She handed Clark a water gun. Okay. Clark reached out and took it. As a result, he was sprayed with water in the next second. Haha. Abigail smiled happily and ran away. Wiping his face, Clark stood up fiercely and chased after him. Abigail, don't run. A week later, Falcone Estate. In the study, the atmosphere was depressing. A fat man of more than 300 pounds was kneeling on the ground at this time, and cold sweat continued to emerge from his forehead. Your Excellency, Falcone, the fat man wiped the sweat from his face with a handkerchief, and said tremblingly, this is the case, that thing, is left behind when the night demon left. Quote. At this time, on the desk. A piece of torn white shirt cloth with a few words written crookedly in blood. Tomorrow night at midnight, take your dog's life. There was no expression on the face of Falcicio's cabinet at this time. It was as if it was the calm before the storm, which made the fat man tremble with fright, and he didn't even dare to raise his head to take a look, for fear that he would be killed by the furious Lord Falcone in the next second. Time, minute by minute. The fat man's whole person was about to collapse in fear. Finally, His Excellency Falcone, who had been silent for a long time, spoke. My Falcone family has been based in this city for hundreds of years, and there have been many people who have tried to shake the status of the family, but without exception, they have failed. His Excellency Falcone stood up and walked over to the fat man. If he's coming, let him come. I'll wait for him here. And you? His Excellency Falcone nodded the fat man's heart with his cane. You're going to greet this guest tonight for me. The fat man nodded hurriedly. Don't dare to have the slightest strange thought. Before evening, a thunderstorm suddenly visited the city. Heavy rainfall accompanied by thunder. It seems that God wants to wash away the filth of the city and usher in a new life for it. Outside the Falcone estate, at the end of the road. The light of the street lamp appeared a little dim under the heavy rain, and in the haze, the gang members guarding the perimeter of the manor seemed to see a blurry figure, slowly walking from the other side of the road. Attention! Someone's coming. Quote. The gang members on the periphery raised their spirits. His eyes were fixed on the blurry figure in the depths of the darkness. Suddenly. He's gone. Where did he go? Be careful around. Quote. Night demon, I've seen you. The gang members panicked, and many of them were screaming on their legs. These days, they have heard too many legends about the night devil, what unkillable monsters, 3 meters tall, eating large living people alive, and so on. These terrible rumors, they can still laugh at them on weekdays, and even laugh at those who are afraid because of this. But now, none of them can laugh. Did anyone find him? See where he is. Jerry. Where did Jerry go? Quote. In the darkness, it seems that a terrifying monster is hidden. The rainstorm blurred their vision, and the thunder made it impossible for them to even hear the shouts of their companions around them. An atmosphere of panic enveloped them all. And in the darkness, a pair of eyes are staring at these people. He is haunted and takes a gang member with him every time he strikes. These gang members didn't even see him, but gradually noticed that there were fewer and fewer companions around, and the companions who were obviously next to him one moment suddenly disappeared the next. Someone freaked out. Begin shouting and shooting into the depths of the empty darkness, as if this is the only way to bolster your courage. Torrential rain and thunder became Clark's best cover at this time. In the past week, his physical fitness has reached more than 4 times that of the average adult, and the improvement has been even more impressive than in the past 2 years. With 4 times the physical fitness of ordinary people in all aspects, Clark turned into a ghost, and in a haunted way, he easily disintegrated the defensive force on the periphery of Falcone's manor. Wringing the neck of the last peripheral gang member, Clark glanced at the corpses lying around him, turned and continued to go deeper into the manor. Thundered. Lightning briefly illuminated the dark night sky. A rush of footsteps came from far and near, and soon the door of the study was opened. Your Excellency Falcone, the night demon has arrived. Finally here. His Excellency Falcone, who had reached out and removed his reading glasses, smiled calmly and calmly said, "Let's begin, let them entertain our night demon gentlemen." Quote. Yes, Your Excellency Falcone. His men led the way. In the study, H.E. Falcone put on his reading glasses again and continued to read the book in his hand. Do you know why the old fisherman releases all the fish he catches? Suddenly, His Excellency Falcone asked into the air in the study. Half a ring, no response. He raised his head and looked into the corner of the study. The tall figure sitting quietly in that chair, motionless. He's just enjoying the fishing. His Excellency Falcone smiled lightly and said, Mr. Winter Soldier, will you enjoy the process of hunting your prey? Quote. The tall man sitting in that chair did not say a word, as if he had not heard His Excellency Falcone's words at all. On the lawn of Falcone's estate, there were many corpses lying down. Behind the fence in the distance, there were also 4 Maximin machine guns. Bullets covered the lawn like a barrage of metal. If Clark was still the same physical fitness as a week ago, I am afraid that he would be directly suppressed and difficult to advance, and even the body that could be called an immortal body would be beaten into a puddle of mud. But at present, Clark, whose physical fitness has improved considerably, can avoid machine gun fire by running rapidly. Although there will still be a few bullets hitting him. But that didn't slow him down. When Clark rushed behind the fence, punched one by one, and neatly solved the 4 machine gunners. Bang! A loud gunshot. The bullet hit the ground at Clark's feet. It was a sniper in the distance. The heavy rain seriously affected the accuracy of the sniper, and combined with Clark's increasingly keen senses, he could even sense the arrival of danger in advance and avoid it in advance. Swish! His figure disappeared under the rain curtain. The sniper in the attic in the distance also lost his target, and a sense of foreboding suddenly appeared in his heart. Report. Lost target. Repeat. Lose track of the target. Quote. Falcone Manor is more than just an ambush of a sniper. But at this time, many snipers lost track of their targets. This rainstorm. A sniper punched the ground angrily. He did not notice that a pitch-black figure was already standing behind him. Click. The sound of bones being crushed. Like a ghost, Clark found the location of these snipers one by one, crushing their necks one by one. When the last sniper was solved, all that remained in the entire Falcone estate was the sound of torrential rain hitting the ground and bursts of thunder. Boom. The door to the study was slammed open. A fat figure rolled in. I can't imagine that His Excellency Falcone is still interested in raising a pig on his doorstep. Clark came in through the door with the smell of blood. Have I offended Your Excellency? Falcone looked calmly at Clark, who walked through the door. As far as I know, no. Clark shook his head and said. So, it's just my bad luck. Falcone laughed and said. Think so a bit. Clark nodded. His eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of the sitting figure in the corner of the study, and his face couldn't help but change slightly. Looks like you also hired a helper. Clark said. No way, if you want to deal with a strong person like you, ordinary people are still a little difficult. His Excellency Falcone smiled and said. So, you're also Hydra? Clark asked him. No, I'm just a businessman, just trading. His Excellency Falcone shook his head and said, Mr. Winter Soldier, your mission goal has arrived, and now it is time for you to start hunting. Quote. Over there, the Winter Soldier, who had not said a word from beginning to end, stood up. He picked up the rifle at hand and, without hesitation, swept a shuttle of bullets at Clark. Bang bang bang. The bullets swept across a line, several of which grazed Clark's face, tearing his facial muscles but healing quickly in an instant. After sweeping the shuttle, the Winter Soldier did not hesitate to replace it with a grenade. Aiming at Clark's side, he pulled the trigger. Bang! The grenade made a large hole directly in the wall of the study. Clark was buried in ruins. He tore open the already tattered clothes on his chest, revealing the black Superman suit inside. It was precisely because of the protection of the Superman suit that he was not blown out of the chest by the grenade just now. Fortunately, I was prepared. Clark said darkly. Before coming tonight, he deliberately changed into a Superman suit in order to avoid being attacked by some powerful lethal weapons. The defensibility of the Superman suit is still very strong, and the frontal hard resistance shell will not be damaged in the slightest. However, the shock wave generated by the explosion will still hurt Clark's body. Fortunately, he has Uncle Wolf's ability to heal himself at super speed. This little internal injury, but it was repaired in a few breaths. Crawling out of the ruins, Clark looked up and saw that both Falcone and the Winter Soldier were gone. Ran away. Almost the moment this thought popped into his mind, he caught a glimpse of a tall figure rushing from one side out of the corner of his eye. Bang! The metal fist slammed heavily on Clark's resisting arm. The huge force directly caused Clark to take a few steps back, which stabilized his body. The loose-haired Winter Soldier, like a hungry wolf from Siberia, saw delicious food, and fiercely rushed towards Clark. That metal arm, even Clark, who had more than 4 times the physical fitness of ordinary people, felt a pang of pain when he was hit by it. The two exchanged several back and forth in a short period of time. Clark was completely downwind. Thanks for watching.